right, Bitcoin accumulation country. It's that time of the week again. My name is Coin Icarus. This is the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. We are in season 3, and this is episode 36. Well, hope everybody's having a great week. We are about to kick off a really interesting technical podcast with BenTheCarman. We are going to talk about BIP8, BIP9, and discrete log contracts, or in brackets, oracles on Bitcoin. But before we do that, first, we want to give a shout out to our new sponsor, Crypto Cloaks, where you can get all your Bitcoin 3D printing design needs fulfilled. And because we're so proud to have Crypto Cloaks as our sponsor, we are going to do a coupon code that gives all the listeners 5%. We're going to put it in the show notes. You get 5% off any of your orders. And the coupon code is Fun with Bitcoin. So don't forget to check out CryptoCloaks.com. And before we get into the interview with BenTheCarman, we are going to talk about dollar cost averaging and Swan Bitcoin. For anybody who is interested in dollar cost averaging and who wants to be purchasing Bitcoin but doesn't want to be spending their time constantly watching the charts and listening to traders that they really have no idea whether these people are credible or not, and you kind of just want to put this in in a passive sleep mode where you're simply just accumulating and hodling, being able to transfer that Bitcoin out to your own private address. So if you're interested in doing that and that falls in your wheelhouse, then you are looking for Swan Bitcoin. With Swan Bitcoin, the three main takeaways are we can do automatic withdrawal from a bank account, automatic purchases of BTC. You can time them based on your when you receive your check. You can do it let's say once you can do it once a month, or you can do it per pay period as well. There's lots of options for you to be able to customize how you purchase. And you could automatically withdraw to your chosen address. So if you're interested in a Bitcoin-only platform that is doing the great work of helping onboard people, then you definitely want to check out Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to have the link to their website in the show notes. I hope everybody's ready for an interesting chat. Here is my conversation with BenTheCarman. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I'm your host, Coin Icarus, or Phil, whichever way you want to address me. And joining me today is a gentleman that I actually started to follow on Twitter. And I've gone back and forth with him just a couple of times, mostly just read his tweets. And he ended up working on a project for the hack sprint that I found very interesting called Discrete Contracts. And Discrete Log Contracts, excuse me. And anyways, from that point, I started to look a little more in depth at his posts, and I noticed that, he put a lot of tweets out about BIP8. And so I asked him to come on my podcast, and he agreed. So with me today is BenTheCarman. Ben, thank you so much for coming on my pod.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm excited to be here.
It's very cool to have you on. I definitely, you're one of my more favorite accounts that I follow on Twitter. You're kind of like a no nonsense guy, so I do appreciate it, and I like that. You're one of my signal accounts. So
well, thank you. I try to ship posts, but I also try to put out some good signal as well. So I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
No, it's clear which way. It's clear when you're doing either. So don't worry, you're good. But before we get into talking about BIP8 and we get into talking about discrete log contracts, I always want to start off with the rabbit hole story and pretty much, the thinker behind the thought. If you care to share, where were you before Bitcoin and how you got here?
Yeah. So I am, like a lot of people, class of 2017. I was home for Thanksgiving break from college, and I watched some comedy podcasts, and they were talking about Bitcoin. Like, look at this thing, it's going way up, and like they were talking about like other like random shit coins too. Like Quadriga CX came up in that conversation, which is pretty hilarious. But after that, I was like, kind of should look into this thing. I bought like $50 on Coinbase. I'm like, okay, I'm set for life if this thing takes off. And I like did the math. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not. This sucks. So I like that. Well, but then I was still like, I don't know. It was like just stuck in my head. So I watched like a million Andreas videos after that, and then like I was fully down the rabbit hole at that point. And I just got really intrigued. Like I remember when Safedin's book came out, I was like, oh, this guy tied this Austrian economics thing to Bitcoin, not knowing that like, oh, this is like one of the core foundations of it. And like after reading his book, that took me down like a whole nother rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, this thing goes so much deeper and has such like wide societal impact. So after that, I was fully convinced. But at the time, I was still going to college for computer science. So December 2018, like a year after just like basically spending all my time like just watching Bitcoin videos and Bitcoin Twitter and absorbing as much Bitcoin content as I could, I was like, you know what, I'm actually a developer. I could work on this thing. So that's when I like wiped all my computers, put Linux on them, and tried to start working on Bitcoin Core. Shortly after, I got like my first Core PR merged, which I thought was really cool. Now I have like maybe 10 or so PRs merged, and then school started back up, so I had to kind of put that down for a while. But then that summer, I worked on Wasabi for a while, and that was a lot of fun. Learned a whole bunch of stuff there. Got to interact with, No Par, Max Hillebrand, all the other devs on there. Really smart guys, and they taught me a whole lot. And since then, it started back up at school. And then once I graduated, I started back here at Surebits, where now I'm doing like things like discrete log contracts, and I've been doing that since like beginning of 2020 pretty much, and I've been loving that. So yeah, that's my basically Bitcoin story, I'd say.
Very cool. Well, I've got some questions for you on that because your story. I'm also class of. I would consider myself class of 2017 because I came to Bitcoin in like mid 2016 for medium of exchange, and then after that tumbled down the shitcoin rabbit hole in 2017 with the pump. So
Oh,
same class.
don't worry, I did the same too. There was a time being where I was a huge nano shill, and I thought like instant prepayments was the way to go, and I figured out, well, it's not really instant or free. So
These guys always attack us. I always find these nano shills on Bitcoin on Bitcoin threads, and it's always like the same guy too. It's like this one guy that they have that comes on, and he just like talks about how it's completely free, and talks about how like it is decentralized because they have so many nodes, and but it's
yeah,
like yeah, there's
it's
so
like,
much more
well,
to it.
yeah, it's like, well, the founders printed all of it for themselves originally, so it's not really decentralized.
And the founder's also pretty sketchy. I know that we're supposed to leave people's personal lives out of it, but if you do a little digging into the founder, you'll see that he's got some nefarious. He's got an interesting past. So
Interesting.
okay, but besides Nano, because we don't really care about shitcoins. But yeah, I thought Nano was cool too for a little while. So I do admit to that shitcoining. You talked about the Andreas videos. Okay, so I also watched a ton of videos. Do you have one specific video? I always recommend to people this video that he made called 50 currencies worth less than goat shit. Um, do you
I don't remember that one.
It's
I
one of
know,
his talks, like it's like a
yeah,
talk he did at NXT. But do you recall the one specific? Is there one specific video?
I know most people point to the Bubble Boy one where like it says like all the banks are like this bubble and like Bitcoin is like, the brick that can't be broken or popped. And that was the first one I watched, so I didn't get the full depth of it really. Like after rewatching it later, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand like every point he's making here now. But I would just say like him just talking about like just he basically just drilled into my head like Bitcoin's here to stay and it's unstoppable. And I think that was just like the biggest takeaway from any Andre's video that I got.
Fair enough. And it's true. I mean, if you watch, like, all of his videos kind of do start to come together at one point, and it just all you have is that general message. So I definitely agree.
It kind of has that effect, you know. Um, you had mentioned also that you worked at Wasabi for a time. Are you at liberty to discuss what exactly you were working on with them
Oh yeah,
when you were
yeah.
there?
It's just all open source stuff. Because last summer they did like a Wasabi contribution game, which is basically so like anyone can contribute to Wasabi since it's open source. They said like during this month contributions will be like you'll get a little bit of sats like weighed off like how big your contribution is. And I was just working like a minimum wage job over the summer, so I was like, well, in my free time, let's make some sats and contribute to Wasabi. So I did that for a month, and I really fell in love with like that project, and I made some decent amount of sats. So I was like, this is fun. And then the next month, I still had like a month left of summer, so then I like just continued working on the project in my free time, and I just did general like basic improvements to the wall. I added some features that people enjoy now. I'd say like I added being able to like set your own fee rate versus like just using their slider, or and I did like a whole bunch of like UI improvements, just like cleaning things up or patching small bugs, which helped a lot, which I think was really fun.
Cool. Yeah, I like. I mean, in terms of, I don't do any real coding. I do troubleshooting, but I do agree that sometimes some of those tasks that other people may, you know, not appreciate, like you can really find, you know, like you can really find a good space in there and like realize that, you know what, like this really helped the overall user experience, and that's what I was going for.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause there's like a lot of like just like issues I'd like go through on the tracker, just like, oh, this is a very small UI bug that is annoying, but like if you're like a cryptography researcher or a privacy researcher, you don't want to just spend an hour trying to figure this out. But college age like me who's just got free time is like, yeah, I can spend an hour figuring this out, and I don't know, I learned a lot from it, so I enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's amazing, and that's exactly the key. You know, it's what you take away from it. So that's absolutely awesome. Okay,
Hmm.
um, so the next question is um, so in Bitcoin, when you want to submit a proposal, you have a BIP, right? It's the Bitcoin improvement proposal. Is that
Yep.
okay? Perfect. Okay, and you specifically in your tweet name, you have BIP 8. So for the listeners and myself, you know, I'm not going to pretend like I really understand it entirely. Can you explain, I guess, what BIP 8 is? We'll start with that.
Yeah. First to explain BIP 8, I think it's actually better to explain BIP 9. So stick with me
Okay,
first.
cool. Okay, so we'll start with BIP 9.
So maybe even before BIP 9, we'll start with what a soft fork is in Bitcoin. So
Okay,
basically,
cool.
what a soft fork is you want to make a change to the actual Bitcoin protocol, either like what transactions look like or like what blocks look like. Like for example, adding a block size limit, like Satoshi did for a while ago, or adding Segwit, which was another soft fork we did. So what BIP 9 is basically a way to coordinate how to do that soft fork. Like originally, like in 2010, what they would do for a soft fork is just say like, oh guys, at block height, 100,000, the new rule is going in the chains. Make sure you upgraded your node to be ready if you want to be validating those rules or mining blocks that are under those rules. But that's not really socially scalable especially at this scale where Bitcoin's worth like hundreds of billions of dollars. So now we have so people started using BIP 9, which is a way for miners to signal that they're ready for the upgrade. So that way, like if it was like the upgrade would change like the block format slightly, then miners wouldn't just be like mining invalid blocks and causing a big chain split. They could instead like signal they're ready, and then once 95% signal they are ready, then we'll do the upgrade. So at most only 5% will be like producing invalid blocks, so there won't be like some chain split and like people losing lots of money. But as we all know, Segwit was a whole kerfuffle, and that was trying to use BIP 9. But like two main takeaways from Segwit was there's a big problem with miners being able to basically vote on if it was coming, and then another problem was that the timeout for like when the miner's signal was a real world time, not a block time or a block height. So basically BIP8 fixes both of these, which one, it uses block heights instead of block times. So then so if miners like produce blocks slowly or quickly, it doesn't change the schedule of the upgrade coming. And then there's a parameter in it where it's called lock-in on timeout. So you could say at the end of the signaling period, if miners didn't signal, we could still just say, well, screw you guys, we're activating it, kind of like a UASF at the end of it. So BIP8 is one of the proposals to be used for activating Taproot, and I think that's the correct way to do it. So that's why I have it in my Twitter handle.
Okay, so how does BIP8 help activate Taproot? Because after that, we're going to be able to get to discrete log contracts, right? Because discrete log contracts can't come in without Taproot. Am I mistaken? I don't want to go too far, but I guess okay. So let me go back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
no, you're good.
Okay, so how does BIP8 help with Taproot? Is it because of the lock-in timeout, or
It's just like we need a way to activate it, and I mean, we could do BIP9. We could just say, at block height X, we're activating it, but ideally we do it in a non centralized coordinated way. So there's like a million different proposals right now. Like some of them are using like combinations of BIP8 and BIP9. Some of them are saying like most of them are just like different variations of BIP9 of like how long to set the timeout, or if we're gonna do the lock-in on timeout. But in general, it's just like we need a way to activate Taproot onto the network. So basically, once the code is ready and merged into core, then we can decide like, okay, we're gonna start the activation process on this height, and it's gonna end on this height, and whether or not we want to activate it or not if the miners don't signal in time. But keep in mind as well, like besides Segwit, almost every other soft fork that was like a miner activation soft fork, it didn't take like the entire time. Like the one right before Segwit took 2 months, even though it was like scheduled to take a year. So more than likely, once we start the activation process, it'll be done pretty quickly.
so? Okay, I've been doing some digging, and of course, I'm not abreast like you are to the developers, I'd say, and and the code. But okay, so the last thing I checked, which was probably like 6 months ago, it seemed that we were like at a standstill to get Taproot implemented. So has that changed? Like somebody, I forget who it was that I spoke with on Twitter, but they had indicated approximately like 2 years. And keep in mind, this was like 6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So are we any closer, or are we still trying to figure out how to activate it or when to activate it?
Yeah, I mean, like the activating and the actual code are like two separate conversations. Right now, the actual Taproot code for Bitcoin Core is up as a PR. It recently lost its like work in progress tag, so it's like quote unquote ready. I know they're still doing a bunch of touch ups on it and review, but otherwise, and then the like Schnorr libraries that Bitcoin relies on, is the PR for that is still in review, but that one is very close to being ready.
Okay.
So the code is basically there. It could, like if someone was just like, it needs to be in there today, we could do it, but people want to be slow about it and methodical and smart. So so it's like ready. It's just the activation process is going to be the long part. But I bet by like a year from now, I bet we'll have Segwit and like activated.
These terrible conscientious coders that want to do things right. It's like, why can't they just move fast and break things?
Right, just
right?
press the button,
That's
activate
it.
it.
Just, move fast and break it, and then who cares? It's just billions of dollars. We'll just flip the switch. No, but obviously I'm being facetious, and of course, like that's what some Ethereum putts would want. But the reality is that we're obviously very pleased that everybody's taking their time and they're digging into this. So okay, so I think like the timeline hasn't really shifted that much from 6 to 8 months ago. I feel like we're still in that ballpark of like possibly a year out at least.
Yeah. Like I mean, the biggest mystery right now is like when we'll start the activation progress, but that should be soonish, depending on like Bitcoin Core's release schedule and like how fast it takes for the review. But I presume it won't be too long.
Okay, very cool. So from here we're gonna jump to, you work at Surebits and you work on discrete log contracts, which has been explained to me as oracles on Bitcoin. And of course, lots of shitcoin shills, talk about Link and talk about oracles on Ethereum, and that's all fine. But well, for us, we're interested in, like the I guess let's say the Oracle implementation on Bitcoin. And if I understood it correctly, Taproot Taproot, I guess, implies Schnorr. Like Taproot can't come into existence without Schnorr, right?
I'm not too sure about that, but like it's 100% going to come with Schnorr.
Okay, so it is. So okay, so one is. I'm just trying to figure out if they have a dependency on each other. But Taproot is required for discrete log contracts. Is that correct?
To do them on Lightning, it'll make it much easier. But I mean, you can do discrete log contracts already. Back in like 2019, some of the blockstream guys like manually did a discrete log contract on mainnet already, so they have been done. I've done like 100 of them on testnet, just like developing with them. But yeah, they're definitely doable. Do you want me to go into like what they are?
Yeah, definitely. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna try. I always try to explain it in a real world situation, and I think one of the best ways to explain it is kind of like an insurance contract, where if the certain event occurs, then essentially the payout would occur. And so it's like a real world scenario that then has an on chain application. That's the easiest way I can figure it out. But please.
I like to use this example. So Mr. or American Hodl and Peter McCormack, they're doing their bet with, on who wins the U.S. election.
Absolutely.
So what they're doing is they have a 2 of 3 multi-sig, like a Bitcoin output, where they have like their Bitcoin in it. And they each have a key, but then Phil Geiger from Unchained Capital also has a key. So their plan is, once like whoever wins the election, like say Trump wins, then American Hodl gets the money. So him and Peter can sign a transaction to spend it, or him and Phil Geiger can sign a transaction to spend it, and then they receive their funds. But what discrete log contracts does is basically makes it so you don't need like your Phil Geiger to help you be the like arbitrator of it. What you instead do is have someone else just sign a message saying like yes, this person won the election, and then they'll use that signature to make their transaction valid to spend without needing them to do like a 2 of 3 multi-sig. So you'd have like a 2 of 2. And that makes it like a lot better for both sides, because for one, the Oracle now isn't like a escrow, and then there's like a whole bunch of legal ramifications there. You might have to like KYC people, or like if they're even just keeping information that's like a privacy leak. And then for the users as well, so now like the Oracle doesn't know that their signature was used, so they don't know like who's using them. So then the users have privacy from the Oracle, as well as then and then it's just a 2 of 2 multi-sig. So it looks like it could be a Lightning transaction, it could be like a Blockstream green output, it could be whatever a 2 of 2 multi-sig transaction is, which is a lot more common than a 2 of 3.
So this is very interesting. So this would, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this would be the type of technology that eventually could have like a UI built around it that would maybe help with insurance companies, or I'm trying to think of like anything else, like I don't know, mortgages or something like that. Like I feel like maybe even somehow law. I don't know why.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things with it. Like one thing is we've talked about is doing like a synthetic asset, where like you basically just do like a real quick like contract for difference. Say like if you want to make like Bitcoin, but you're actually like holding like effectively silver, you just do like constantly like reoccurring contract for difference of the silver price. So then like your Bitcoin or like your holdings basically changes according to the value of silver. So you could do something like that, or you could just do like basically hedging, where like say you're a miner and you want to like place a bet on like difficulty, you could have an oracle like signing difficulty, and then if the price or if the difficulty goes down too much, then you get like funds back, or you lose funds, whatever your contract is. there's like, or you could just do like a full like decentralized exchange kind of thing where you're just betting on like what's the price of, I don't know, Twitter stock, and then you just denominate it in Bitcoin. You get that back depending at the end of the contract.
It's I find it very interesting, but it's also I don't know. It's also complex because I understand. To me, it seems like everything behind it is very complex to make this all happen. So, I guess what part of it do you work on at Surebits? Like, do you kind of just work on everything, or?
Um, yeah, kind of. So a lot of the implementation part of like the actual like transaction, like signing, like, and the transaction formatting is all done by my coworker Nadav. But I've been doing most of the wallet side implementation of it. So like how the wallets talk to each other to negotiate this, as well as how do we store all these signatures, and then how do we like verify it all, and then create these transactions.
So, do you see a use case where somebody would have this functionality like built into their I guess like I'm thinking about a retail user like myself, like we would have this built into our Bitcoin wallets, or would it be part of like a, a Bitcoin like gambling site, or I don't sorry.
No, no, these are all good fair questions. So, I mean, it totally could be part of a wallet. So, like, say like you're a gambler, you just download like Gambler Wallet, and it's got if you want to bet on these horse races or these these elections or football game, whatever, what have you. You just, as long as you have an oracle signing the events of uh any outcome, then you could theoretically do a DLC on that and like bet on it with that. So you could totally do something like that. And then even so, they're also just like very privacy preserving. So like we could just have them like be part of like a giant coin join, and people are doing DLCs, but also some people could be doing like a coin join as well, and you'll both be mixing your non-anonymity sets. So um, there's other like use cases where it's reason to put it into a wallet without having everyone use it.
Okay, so let me ask you this because as I explained before the show, I host the Lightning Node roundtables, and we've been doing the Lightning Hack Sprint wrap ups, right? From I think it's Fulmo Lightning that's been sponsoring those, so shout out to him. Okay, and you worked on as well PTLCs. Okay, now what is it? Point time lock contracts.
Yep, yep.
Nice.
So,
okay, so if you can, let's try the. What is the simplest way we can? Because I have to be honest, I tried to explain because somebody asked me about Bitcoin oracles on Bitcoin Kindergarten, which is the like a new kind of like up and coming podcast that Nick and My Living Truth host, and okay, and I got incredibly mixed up between discrete log contracts and PTLC. So if you can, what is the simplest way we can explain PTLCs?
so simple way. So
Simple way. I know it's tough.
The simple, like, for the average user, they'll never know they should never know they're using a PTLC, but it's more of like a technical term of like how your Lightning channel is set up. So like today, Lightning channels use HTLCs, which means a hash time lock contract. So that means like when you negotiate or do a payment, you reveal the preimage to a hash to unlock your money and get your funds to complete your payment. But instead of doing that, which with PTLCs, you instead basically reveal a private key to a public key. So what that lets you do is, once we have like things like Schnorr, then you can add up all these points, and then so you could have like multiple different PTLCs all relying on each other, instead, because with the hash you lose information like by hashing it with but otherwise, but with like going from public key to private key, you're not losing information, you're just basically doing multiplication. So you can add them all up and then do multiplication again, and you're still not losing information. It's just all the information is aggregated now, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, so sorry, DLCs are really enabled by this, because the Oracle signature is basically just a point. So you can so with a PTLC, you can basically just add that point to part of your PTLC, and now your Lightning payment is reliant on the Oracle signature. So then so basically then you can do like a DLC on Lightning that way.
Okay. Okay, so going back to your original point that the average user should never know they're using it. So it's kind of like it's just an underlying protocol. It's not going to have a like a visible aspect to a person using a Lightning node.
No, they should never know. Like it's
Okay.
totally just like what the script is
It's
on
under
your
the sheets.
transaction. Yeah, so like
Okay, cool.
like if you're scared by everything I just said, just don't worry. You'll never have to worry about that. That's gonna be something that I'll have to worry about, sadly, and code all that.
No, but we appreciate it, and I think it's really cool. And I mean, don't get me wrong, but that is an issue of having data loss. And in this particular case, I for what I do for work in troubleshooting databases, people obviously can't handle data loss, so I equate it to this. I mean, this to me is, it's like it's another way of making it possible so that all the data stays intact.
Yeah,
so,
you're not like.
But you're also revealing less information as well, if I understood that correctly, or not. Because
no, it's just like a random private like point or like random key that you're generating. It's not like any private information, but
okay.
But I mean, theoretically, with PTLCs, it enables more use cases on Lightning. So hopefully that means there's more stuff going on Lightning, which is more private than on-chain Bitcoin. So I guess more private if you extend it that way.
Very cool. Very cool. Man, Ben, this is I really appreciate you coming on and explaining this. I mean, I've done a lot of reading on this, and it really I just find it, to the average user, I find it confusing, but at the same time, the way that I learn is that the more often I'm exposed to something, the more comfortable I feel with it. And it's like this is very cool. So I gotta ask you, when are you gonna come on the Bitcoin kindergarten, Bitcoin Q&A kindergarten? Because I know those guys they definitely want you to come on and talk some of this.
Oh, I'd love to come on. I honestly I don't even know when they are. I always see them talking about it, but I've been too busy a lot lately. But yeah, I'd be totally down. I know they, like me and my coworker Nadav, we did a presentation for Bitcoin Magazine about DLCs, and they commented on it like, you guys need to come on, but we haven't gotten the formal come at this time. But yeah, we should totally just jump on and
all right, I'm gonna bug Nick and My Living Truth.
All right.
So I mean, look, I'm going to I've got no more questions for you. I'm like totally I've got to go back and do some serious reading. But do you have any I guess like what's besides the discrete log contracts, is there anything else you're looking into in the Bitcoin space, stuff that you're interested in?
I mean, I really like privacy oriented stuff, and I've been following Wasabi a lot, but not enough to speak on it, sadly. But I don't know. I mean, DLCs kind of scratches my itch with privacy stuff because it is like, it's just a more private way to do contracts, so can't complain there.
I totally think that it is one of those things that is going to really cement Bitcoin into a different layer of the mainstream, because it's now going to enable these types of things that have required expensive people to do. Like there's a lot of middlemen in contracts, and this takes a lot of these middle people out. So
yeah, like today, like if you want to hedge your bet on a stock, you might have lawyers, you might have like a hedge fund that you're dealing with, you might have exchange fees versus this. You pay a couple bytes for a signature, and that's it. Some on-chain fees.
Yeah, man.
I'm down with that.
I think it is totally. It's one of those things that people like. I think that people don't know how big this is, and when they look back at it, when it gets like when it's fully implemented and starts being used, people are gonna look back and be like, "Holy shit!" For real.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
When I first started working at Surebits, and this like, yeah, this is the main thing we're working on basically for like a thing. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of niche, but I guess. And then like after really working with it for a while, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this could be huge, because just enabling like smart contracts on Bitcoin, like in a more private way. Like, for one, you can shut up all the shitcoiners and say, we can't do that on Bitcoin, and it's better because it's more private. And then, we get to take on like even more of the fiat world, which can't complain there.
Nope, that's right, man. This is like this is the double-edged sword where the Bitcoiners win on both sides. We take out the shitcoiners and we piss off the fiat lovers. Well, they're not really lovers; they're just fiat slaves. But they don't know that. But yeah, man. So look, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners?
Yeah. At Surebits, we have like 1 million blog posts about basically everything I've talked about today, all from DLCs to like BIP8 to Schnorr, Taproot. So anything you're curious about, check out a blog post. Me and Nadav have probably written something about it, and they're all pretty in depth. And we have some high level ones. So for all readers, if you want to know more, and I don't know, follow me on Twitter, BenTheCarman. I tweet some stupid stuff and some cool stuff.
I will be putting a link to your Twitter in the show notes, and if you can, please just send me the link to the Surebits blog site so I can get that in the show notes as well.
Will do.
Man, it's been absolutely awesome having you on, and I really hope that I could have you on again.
I'd love to come back on. This was great.
Very cool, man. So you have yourself a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with BenTheCarman. It's probably one of my more technical episodes. I definitely enjoyed it because discrete log contracts is something I find very fascinating, and I totally think it's one of those things that Bitcoiners, or even just people in general, just don't quite understand what the implications are. Anyways, very cool stuff. Ben's contact details will be in the show notes, and of course, if you want to reach me by Telegram or Twitter, I am at CoinIcarus. If you want to shoot me an email, I am coinicarus@funwithbitcoin.com. Thank you all for listening, and catch you all next time.